Good morning, Highland. I've been reading a book that's described as a beach read, one of those things you lay on the beach and read, but I'm not going to any beach at this particular time, and I have no sand between my toes, and yet something struck me in the book. Just a brief vignette about a father taking his daughter out to look at the night sky through their telescope, explaining things to her about the Big Dipper, but explaining to her that it was part of something bigger. And then later in the vignette, hoping that she will come to realize that she's part of something bigger as well. I think during this time it's hard to feel that with the isolation that comes with this pandemic, being separated from each other. And yet there are things that help me feel like I'm part of something bigger. And I wanted to mention a few of those things this morning. Yesterday I was running. It was hot, humid. I saw this elderly woman, and elderly being defined as anybody older than I am. She came out her front door and plopped heavily in a chair in such a way that you knew it might be a struggle to get out of that chair. So I called out to her, "How are you today?" It's one of those stilted kind of times where you say something and you expect a certain answer, a social exchange, if you please. But she didn't answer that way. She said, "Faster." And it caught me off guard. I did not understand it at first. And I said, "Beg pardon?" And she said, "Faster." And I thought, here I am talking to somebody older than I am. I've just met for the very first time with no introduction, and she's already talking smack to me. But she clearly is delighting in doing it. And so I talked back to her. I said, "Well, I'm glad you're not my coach." And she said, "You need to run faster. Do I need to come out there and show you how to do it?" I said, "Well, you could, or I can just send other runners that I know to you so you can coach them." She laughed and I laughed and went on. But there was something about the teasing exchange that reminds me that I belong to a larger human family, and that there are people we can talk to and laugh with. There are more serious things that help me feel like I'm part of something bigger. I think of the crosses on our lawn right now, commemorating the lives of those who died due to brutality. To stop there and look at those crosses and see those names and remember those newscasts, it does something to me inside. But this past weekend, as I got to church and saw that somebody from our neighborhood, I assume from the neighborhood, and we don't know who, they put flowers by each one of those markers, and it looks like a well-kept cemetery. Somebody from the community has joined us in commemorating those names, reminding us of the needed changes, reminding us that love transcends. Somebody who mourns with us, and I feel connected to something bigger. This pandemic, this historical moment reminds me that we do belong to something bigger. When I first started my hospice work, how often I ended up talking with patients about the big historical moments in their lives, where they were and what they remembered from the Great 37 flood, and how horrific that was, but also what they did. Veterans of World War II, how they participated in the war, and realizing that it was the biggest moment of their lives, even though they were quite young. The meaning was connected to sacrifice. And in this moment, we live in a specific moment of time with the opportunity to save lives and to defeat the worst pandemic of over 100 years. It reminds me that we're part of something bigger, and it requires something of us in this time to maintain hope, to practice sacrifice, to love our neighbors in meaningful ways. It makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger because I'm part of Highland. I feel part of something bigger when we have a week when LGBTQ members do the daily broadcast and they talk about their lives and their faith. It makes me feel like part of something bigger when I see members participating in peaceful protest and in pride marches. It makes me feel like I'm part of something bigger when I participate in a Sunday school class Zoom lesson or gathering, to see each other, to talk to each other, to talk the scriptures, to laugh with each other and connect. I think about walking through the church on a Friday evening, going to do Friday church, and walking through the space in Fellowship Hall where the NA meeting would take place. And the leader of the meeting there would be setting up, and I would wish him well, a good meeting, and he would respond that he hoped I had a good meeting. Both of us seeking to do something to bring healing to the lives of others and to be part of a church that supports both of those efforts. I feel like I'm part of something bigger. I feel like I'm part of something bigger as we approach this time when Mary Alice comes to us as new pastor. I look back over the Joe Phelps years and I feel grateful. I look ahead to the Mary Alice years and I'm just filled with hope. Also, I have the joy of this journey that's ahead, the joy of making that journey with you, as we all belong to something bigger than ourselves. Amen. Have a great day, Highland.